Te reo ererangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Otatahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
Today, the oceans hold their breath as we journey into Ringlet and the Day the Oceans Stop, by Felicity Williams, published by Ahoy, an imprint of the Cuba Press in 2019. Join Libby as waves of mystery, courage and wonder sweep us into an unforgettable adventure. Chapter 3. Ringlet loses her memory and finds an adventure. Ringlet was sinking. She knew she was sinking because she was upside down and the water was changing colour. It went from everyday frothy white to a layer of turquoise, and then she was drifting through an unexpected patch of purple. What had happened? She left Ninkies. At least she thought she had, and the number 3 had been carrying her forwards. At least she thought it was. And there'd been someone, a merwoman, who had asked in a concerned voice where she was headed, and without even waiting for a reply, had taken her by the hand. "Dangerous, the ocean's after dark," murmured the stranger, for one so young, and she felt relieved, rescued even from untold horrors. As they sped forwards together, purple shifted to brown, and Ringlet wasn't so much falling as being pushed into a thick, muddy puddle. She could hear voices coming from all directions, but it was confused, jumbled, and none of the words made any sense. "I'm here," she cried, reaching out. Something soft and diaphanous brushed across her cheek. "Thank you," she murmured, and as she spoke, the brown cleared into a faded yellow. She hit the bottom of the seabed, and everything was still and silent. "Where am I?" In front of her, there was grey sand stretching out forever. She swung around. More of the same. But wait! Close to where she'd landed, there was an old sea lolly tree, and next to it, a crooked sign. "Welcome to the Sea of Forgetfulness. No way in, no way out. Have a nice day." Ringlet traced the spidery letters with her fingers. She flopped backwards. No way in. She'd proven that wrong. "Have a nice day." Her head hurt. Her tail was crumpled from the crash landing, and there was a nagging feeling that she had lost something. She didn't have a clue what it could be. The Sea of Forgetfulness. She circled the sign. How could she have been so careless? I can't remember how. She chased the careless thought out of her mind and replaced it with a sensible one. No matter what the sign says, the sensible thought told her, there has to be a way out. That made her feel better at once. You just have to find it, added the sensible thought. Then the sensible thought left, and a tiny panicky one took over. "Yes, that's right," it said in a high-pitched voice. "But find it quick or else." "Sensible mermaids, do not get lost," said another clipped voice inside her head. "Although there are exceptions. Those who accidentally take a wrong turning, or those foolish enough to look for adventure instead of..." The words trailed off. She recognised the voice. It was her old school teacher, Mergirl. She wished she'd listened better in the class. It started up again, in which case, look for an exit current precisely in the middle. Precisely. Exit current, she thought. Precisely. In the middle of what? "Blue," said the clipped voice. She was about to ask the teacher to explain more. Please. When, without warning, there was a wave. Not a wave from without, because there was none, but a huge wave that rolled inside her head. It crashed into Mergirl and into the words, muddling them up. Then it sped away, taking the lesson and the teacher with it, leaving nothing inside her mind but a pool of bilgy yellow water. "Told you so," said the panicky voice. "Get out fast. It'll be back." She ignored the voice. She felt not fast, and not get-out-ish. She felt more take-a-look-around-ish. She swam over to the sea lily tree. Its branches twisted upwards and then plunged down, snaking along the ocean floor. It seemed confused about which direction it ought to grow, as if it had forgotten how to be a tree. Hanging on the skinny branches were clusters of lollipods. The pods were open, but empty. Someone had been here before her, scooped out all the yummy bits, eaten them, and left a huge pile of pips scattered at the base of the tree. How inconflippinconsiderate, she thought. Get out fast and get out now! The voice was shrill. She shot down and gathered up the pips. They were hard, inedible things, satiny in appearance, and a pretty silvery colour. They were also unusually large. For pips, that is. She felt miffed that there was not one single lolly left to eat. Someone has been greedy, she thought. She squashed them down inside her handbag. Greedy folks will get their comeuppance. There wasn't one voice now. There were lots, and they were screaming, "You haven't got time." She snapped the clasp shut. "All right," she said out loud. "But there are laws against littering the ocean. 10 volumes of them. You'll be litter yourself if you don't." She didn't hear the end of the sentence. The wave returned, sweeping out the shrill voices, sweeping out the hungry feeling, but it didn't take everything. Take a look around-ish had squashed itself into a spot behind her eyes and, as the wave receded, take a look around-ish popped back out and demanded to be noticed. She swam back to where she had landed and looked both ways a second time. She wasn't sure, but in the distance, she thought she saw blue. Then that's the way she'd go. She swished her outer fins several times and then pirouetted on the tip of her tail as fast as she could. If there were currents in this place, that would wake them up. Nothing happened. The bilgy yellow water lay there without so much as a ripple, as if it had forgotten how to be water. She tried again. This time a wave tingled around her face. She gave a massive swish of her fins and a dizzying succession of pirouettes. She reached out and hurled herself onto the smallest of small trickle currents that had appeared, and with that, she began to swim through the expansive and silent sea of forgetfulness towards the smudge of pale blue. Shin Yon didn't care where she ended up as long as it wasn't the fairground. It hadn't been easy. At midnight, as if obeying some predetermined order, the current had dropped her in front of the deserted carousel, and despite her best attempt, had pushed her back with a stinging jet of water every time she tried to get back on. Finally, in desperation and displaying a degree of cunning that surprised even herself, she grabbed the tail of a small fish who was leaving and slipped on to a current incognito. The fish she'd hitched a ride with had gone straight to sleep. Xing Yon poked it. "Do you know where we're headed?" she asked. "The food court," replied the fish drowsy. "Waffles for breakfast." A long way off from where the trickle current was taking Ringlet, cumulus all weather was making do. The old merman didn't like making do, but he didn't have a choice. He was here to work, and he needed a desk, so if that meant dredging up a plank of wood and telling the barnacles on it to scoot off and find themselves a new home, then so be it. Cumulus all-weather was in the sea of forgetfulness, to map a part of the ocean that had never been mapped before. Others had tried, but they never managed to get out of the place once they got in. It didn't bear thinking about. He kept a nervous eye on the capsule tethered nearby that would take him back home when he'd finished. He hoped that when the time came, the sharp prickles that covered it would cut through the ceiling of thought sludge above him as efficiently as they had done bringing him down here. Thought sludge. Hideous stuff, and so much of it. What were the chances of it becoming loose and slipping downwards and slobbering all over him? Cumulus all-weather found himself chewing on the end of his little finger. It was something he did when he got anxious. He was relieved when there was no one around to see him. Or was there? He put down his quill and peered into the vast expanse. A ripple of sea water was coming towards him. which was surprising. Things never rippled in the sea of forgetfulness. Rippling would mean that someone had entered the sea, and he didn't see how that was possible. He left his desk, not noticing that 5 barnacles had suckered themselves onto the back of his tail in silent protest at his using their home, and he swam towards the ripple. Then something out of the ordinary happened. The daisies. His name for the fish who, ever since he'd arrived, had done nothing other than swim in slow circles around him, broke the pattern and surged ahead to swim in a tight-knit clump towards the ripple. Cumulus all weather was, therefore, forced to swim along, looking at their behinds. He did not enjoy it, not at all. It was undignified and embarrassing. Nonetheless, there was a ripple. It had interrupted his concentration, and it needed to be investigated. The smallest of small trickle currents was just that, a trickle. Pathetic. Ringlet experimented with a fin flap by way of encouraging it to move faster. Oh, come on, you. Get a move on. The trickle was offended. It pouted and sulked. The last thing I need, she thought, a current with an attitude problem. Then it tried to tip her out. How rude. She gave the current a little kick in retaliation. From that point on, the current resigned itself to carrying the uninvited traveller, and the traveller resigned herself to the boring dawdle forwards. Ringlet tried singing to pass the time, but after verse 1, she couldn't remember a jot of verse 2, or even if there had been a verse 2. Synchronized swimming was her second choice, but something told her that you needed at least one other person to synchronize with, and there was no one else anywhere. In the end, it was the seascape that provided the only relief from boredom. Coming into view were scattered groves of sea lolly trees, and hanging on the branches in bunches were pods, gaping open, bulging with lollies. She looked at them. Was she hungry? Maybe. She reached down and grabbed a lollipod, scooping out the sweet, and popped it between her lips. She mushed the sloppy ball against the roof of her mouth with her tongue. What a swindle. It's all pip and no lolly. Trying to make it last as long as she could. Yuck. Kinda sour. Swallowed. And then spat out the pip. Pfft. One tree after another, Ringlet repeated the action. Am I hungry? She thought. Think I am. Reach, grab, swallow, pfft. Am I hungry? She thought. Think I am. Reach, grab, swallow, pfft. Slowly, ripple by ripple, grab by grab, pift by pift, she got closer to the middle, the place where there would be an exit current. Except that there wasn't. As she arrived, the smallest of small trickle currents trickled out to nothing. With an exhausted whisper of, I told you so, it abandoned her. Get out fast and get out now. The voice and the feeling again that she'd lost something. Ringlet opened her bag. Lollipops. How they got there, she had no idea. She looked behind her. More of them, trailing out in a silver line as far as she could see. Someone has been greedy and untidy. She shook her purse and tossed them out. The pips drifted down into the seabed, spreading themselves out in an unusual symmetrical pattern. Weird, but cool. There was a rustling noise behind her. She ignored it. I need to find something. She rummaged inside her handbag. What was I looking for? She felt something hard and pebbly. She pulled it out. A starfish? A mottled green starfish? So you're the greedy, untidy one, she thought. She watched it sink down to the land amongst the lollipops. Folk who are greedy will get their comeuppance. She thought she'd heard that before somewhere. A shadow loomed over her and the water trembled. Fish were advancing from all directions. They stopped a short way from her and stared. A pale fish swam to the front. It bent at the waist in a squishy bow. "All hail, your highness, Princess Thingaling," it said. "You called us." She rubbed her eyes. "How do you know I'm a princess?" she said carefully. "You're wearing a crown," said the pale fish. "A crown?" She reached up and felt a petalled rubbery cap covering her head. To her disappointment, as her fingers moved rapidly over it, it had not a single jewel on it. "This isn't a crown," she said, "although that doesn't mean I'm not a princess," she quickly added. She yanked the cap off. The water went murky. The fish gulped and reached and bumped into each other. She pulled the cap back on and squashed her hair underneath it. "Oh dear, bad hair day," snapped under her chin. "Extremely green, smelly, bad hair day." The water cleared and the fish reappeared. They beamed. Their teeth sparkled. Those who had eyelashes fluttered them. They swam around her, bobbing respectfully. "All hail your highness, Princess Thingaling," said the pale fish again. "It's not every day a princess drops in," said another. "Do you know where my jewels are?" she asked. "Wouldn't have a clue," said the pale fish, and then added, "It seems you have been chosen, Thingaling." "Chosen for what?" "To sit on the throne," said the pale fish. "What throne?" "Behind you, Thingaling. And here, 900 lolly pips, unusually large ones, and a 9-pointed starfish. You placed them in perfect symmetry. And you're 9 years old. First things first, there is some stuff to clear up here. For starters," she said, "I'm not 9. That starfish has 7 legs, and no one in their right mind would eat 900 lollies. Your eating habits are none of our business, Thingaling. But if you're not 9, how old are you?" "Older than 9. I'm 900 divided by 9, said the pale fish helpfully. She wrinkled her forehead. 100? Are you really sure?" "Not sure about anything," said the pale fish. "But they say arithmetic is the answer to all of life's problems. So, let me try again." The fish bobbed up and down and waited. 100 minus 9. My last offer. "Stupid, indeed," said the pale fish. "But stupidity solves problems as well. The ones that arithmetic can't. So make up your mind." 91, she sighed. "I guess if you say so." Her mind felt as if it was wandering off. She reached out and pulled it back inside her head. "Ouch! You were talking about a throne." "I was?" The pale fish looked at her blankly. Wobbling behind them was a large ball of effervescent foam that frothed and fizzled. As they watched, it molded itself into 4 curved legs. A billowy seat, and an elaborate arched back. "How do you sit on that?" "It's just a bunch of bubbles." "Excuse me." A smidge more gap. "Yes, I can squeeze if you can." The fish moved apart, creating a corridor down which an elderly merman swam. "Allow me to introduce myself," he said. He knew steering was rude, but he couldn't help himself. And not only at her, but behind her at a chair, regal in appearance, constructed entirely of spumescent water and suspended on strands of seaweed. He couldn't help thinking how stunningly convenient its arrival was. If it was what he thought it was. Who was he? She had seen nothing except bilgy yellow water, grey sand, and shriveled up trees for days, possibly years. Oh, and of course the fish, who were friendly enough but muddled. They stared at each other and waited. The merman, because the mermaid had large petalled flowers growing out of her head, and the mermaid, because there were 5 barnacles attached to the stranger's tail, and she felt herself strangely drawn to them. "Cumulus All-Weather," he said, "researcher and scientist." "Princess Thingaling," she replied, "from the kingdom of Ling." Why isn't the exit current working?" Cumulus All-Weather peered upwards. He found himself staring into a cavity, using as little movement as possible. He wiggled up into the void until only the tip of his tail fin was visible. "Intriguing," he said. He swam back down. "An ancient relic, centuries old. It may have worked once, but it certainly doesn't now." Her response was to groan and flop backwards. Cumulus felt helpless. Was he expected to offer her comfort? He hoped not. He decided to fill the silence with some factual information. It was what he did best. I'm down here researching the sea floor. He waited. A topographical investigation about ridges, sand drifts, and the like. He paused. It was taking all of his self-control not to sneak a closer look at the plants growing out of her head. The sea floor, she flipped upwards. The sea floor's flat. Anyone can see that. She flopped backwards a second time. To your untrained eyes, perhaps. Cumulus did not want to sound argumentative, but the voice of this princess had developed a snappish edge. I have already noted 17 different kinds of flatness. There may be more. In fact, it's highly probably that. She yawned and shut her eyes. Cumulus could not contain his curiosity any longer. He pulled out a magnifying glass to look more closely at the label that hung on the side of her head. Vintage Funwear Bathing Cap. Style 42K, $23.70, it read. And on the other side, keep away from extreme heat. Well, I never, he said to himself. Not a plant I'm familiar with. She opened her eyes and swung back. Stop trying to snatch my crown, she said, and tell me how to get out of here. Begging your pardon, your highness, said Cumulus, but there's no entrance nor exit to the Sea of Forgetfulness. The place exerts a heavy gravitational pull that's never been explained. Leaving's impossible. I was pushed in mechanically. I can't imagine how you got here. The fish surged towards the old merman. Who got here, they said. Us? Cumulus turned his back to the fish. The ripple you created when you, arrived here has given them a small remission in terms of memory. It won't last long, he whispered. It's vanishing as we speak. The only things that have vanished around here are my jewels, she said, patting her crown. Vanished, said the fish, slithering back into the discussion. Us? Cumulus waved his hand, and the fish, looking disappointed, meandered backwards. You're in the Sea of Forgetfulness, he said. The amnesic wave rolls in 3 times a day. The first one takes whatever it can get at the time. The second one takes your name, your home, that kind of thing. The third one, he shrugged helplessly, which is, due about, now? I have a name, she said crossly. Princess Thingaling. Yes, of course, said Cumulus. But let me finish. The third one takes everything else, based on my observations. He gave a little cough. It's not something that you can escape from. And you? She asked. I've swallowed a fisheye, he replied. I'm immune to memory loss. For 3 days at least. She could feel something waiting at the edge of her mind. Go away, she thought, whatever you are, and don't come back. That throne's a way out, isn't it? She said. It seems to have been dropped down on a pulley, said Cumulus. It's possible you could use those ropes to hoist yourself upwards, he added. So, what's upwards? Thought sludge, said Cumulus. It forms a large canopy over the entire Sea of Forgetfulness. Discarded thoughts, good ones, bad ones, in-between ones. Every abandoned thought since the beginning of time. Yuck, she said. I'm not going anywhere near that. Cumulus Allweather pressed his index finger to the spot between his eyebrows. It was a technique he used to help him recall information. This is the temporal throne of Happenchance, he said. It dates back to the great mother of all, within the primordial sea. It's rare and temporary. You appear to have summoned it somehow. It's not every day you see lollipips, unusually large ones, and a mottled green starfish, arranged in such exquisite mathematical symmetry. I didn't arrange the lollipips. she corrected him. "I tossed them. It was completely random." "Nothing's ever random," said Cumulus. He could feel the situation getting tricky, and he would have given anything to have a quick chew on his little finger. But the girl was looking at him intently, as if he had answers. "In my opinion," he said finally, "thrones are for sitting on. In view of your situation, it would seem advisable to, take a chance and, see what happens." "No way," she said, crossing her arms. "I'd get tangled up in those second-hand thoughts and be trapped, possibly forever. I'll stay here and wait for the exit current." There was a commotion as a barnacle extracted itself from Cumulus' oar with his tail and pinged onto her palm. "What's up, fingerling?" it asked. She gasped. A memory was trying to squeeze itself in. "I want to throw you, little barnacle, as hard and as fast as I can." She lifted the barnacle up to her face. "I'm going home," she said. The barnacle giggled. "This is your home now, Princess Thingerling. The Sea of Forgetfulness. No way in, no way out. It's not so bad. You adapt." "Adapt?" She looked at the throne. Small pockets of foam were popping and disappearing, then reappearing, popping, disappearing. The oceans may have paused, but our adventure is far from over. Join Libby next Saturday at 9:30 a.m. as we continue exploring Ringlet and the Day the Ocean Stopped, by Felicity Williams, published by Ahoy, and imprint of the Cuba Press. Keep your curiosity alive and your hearts open, because the magic, mystery, and wonder of the sea are waiting for us in the next chapter on Spin Me a Tale.